Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. Two brothers find a mysterious toy in the basement of their house, and as they play, they realize that the deadly events they draw on the cards happen in real life, such as meteor showers and alien attacks. Today we will recap the story of the movie, Zathura, from 2005. Walter and Danny are two brothers who are always fighting, and are spending a weekend at the home of their father, an extremely busy car designer, who warns the boys that they will be alone for a few hours with their older sister, named Lisa, who despite her father's insistence, goes back to sleep and doesn't care at all about her brothers. After their father leaves, Danny is bored and tries to convince his brother to play baseball with him, but by accident he ends up hitting a ball right in Walter's face, who becomes furious and starts chasing him. Trying to get away with it, the boy hides in a sort of homemade freight elevator that goes from the second floor to the basement, but even though it's a great hiding place, Danny is eventually found, and out of rage, Walter starts down the elevator to the basement while his younger brother begs him to pull him back up. When he reaches the floor below, the boy, who is terrified of the basement, is startled by some noises and begins to run, but as he passes through the gap in one of the shelves, Danny finds the box of a game called Zathura under the ladder. Even though he is upset, the boy picks up the toy and decides to take it to Walter, who has no interest in playing because he is too busy watching the sports channel. As he has become interested in the game, Danny starts fiddling with the board, trying to understand how the game works. He then turns the key, and after pressing the release button, number 5 is drawn. When the move is completed, the board hands the letter to the boy, who tries to decipher what is written, but since he hasn't learned to read yet, he hands it to his older brother and asks him to read it. Walter says it was a warning about a meteor shower, recommending that they retreat. At first the brothers are confused by the message, but after a few seconds of trying to understand what it means, a small sphere of fire from the sky hits the letter, leaving a hole right in the center. At that moment, the TV in the living room goes off the air and the house starts to shake as if they were in an earthquake. After a few seconds, a veritable meteor shower begins to occur, destroying the room completely. The boys then start running in a circle, trying not to get hit, but realizing that this would not be very effective, Walter runs to the fireplace for shelter, and after realizing that it was a good hiding place, calls his brother to stay hidden with him. Danny then takes the cage from his hamster, and the three of them take shelter until the meteor shower passes. As soon as all the chaos is over, the TV is working normally again, only to be hit by a comet of colossal size, destroying it completely and leaving a hole in the ceiling of the house. The brothers then begin to look around and realize that the only place in the house to be hit was precisely the room they were in. All the other rooms were completely unharmed. When looking at the hole that the comet made, Danny can see into space and finds it extremely strange, because they should still see daylight, and besides, the stars looked much bigger and closer than normal. The younger brother then walks to the entrance of the house and, surprised, calls Walter over to look too. As he looks outside, the boy realizes that they are in space, millions of miles away from Earth. In fact, they are very close to the rings of Saturn, the 6th planet in the solar system. Not knowing what to do, the boys go to Lisa's room and wake her up, believing that she might have some idea of what action they should take, but panic-stricken and afraid, the brothers start talking at the same time, and because of this, the girl ends up understanding absolutely nothing they say. When Walter shows her the space outside, Lisa thinks it's dark and runs to the bathroom to get ready for a date she had, but the boys insist that something is wrong and manage to convince her to see what the game was doing. However, when Walter makes his move, the game simply promotes him to captain, giving as a reward the right to walk 2 houses ahead. Obviously, Lisa thought that this was just a stupid toy and that her brothers were trying to trick her, so Lisa just locks herself in the bathroom. With no options, Danny makes his move, and to their misfortune the letter that came out says something about a crew member in a cryogenic chamber. As soon as they finish reading, the boys can't understand what it meant, but as they look at the bathroom door where their older sister entered, they notice that the door has simply frozen shut and a thick, icy mist starts coming out of the doorway. The brothers struggle to get into the room and with great difficulty manage to open the door. As they enter, they see that everything inside the bathroom is completely frozen, including Lisa. So they manage to decipher the message. The bathroom is the cryogenic chamber and their sister is the crew member who will be frozen for the next 5 turns. To save the girl, Walter takes a spray bottle and a lighter and makes an improvised flamethrower to try to unfreeze her, but Danny wisely stops him by saying that this could be dangerous and that they should read the manual. But when they check the box, they realize that the game doesn't have any kind of instructions other than a brief message stamped on the inside of the package, saying that after embarking on the adventure, they can only return home after arriving in Zathura. With no other options to get out of there, the brothers decide to go all the way, and Walter makes his move. This time, the letter mentioned a defective robot, but since they don't own one, the brothers fail to understand once again. At that very moment, a huge shadow starts to approach the corridor, but to their relief it was a harmless little humanoid machine. Thinking that this might be a gift, the boys begin to argue about what to do, and right behind them, the robot that was once the size of an ant now begins to grow to be 10 feet tall. It turns out that this robot is an alien hunter that is supposed to be there to protect them, but since it is defective, it is seeing Walter as an enemy alien and will try to eliminate him. As soon as it reaches its maximum height, the robot releases some thrusters and starts flying towards the boy, trying to take his life. But at the last moment he manages to swerve and the robot ends up sticking its arms in the brick structure of the fireplace. As the automaton grabs a saw to cut the bricks and get loose, Walter says it's Danny's turn and insists that the boy play, because who knows, maybe he's lucky enough to pull out something that might help them. But to their great misfortune, when the robot flew towards the boys, it ended up hitting the toy and knocked out the key. Since they could not play without it, Walter starts looking for the object and finds it near the robot's foot. Taking advantage that the creature is trapped, the boy bends down and tries to reach the key, but is almost caught by the robot that finally gets loose and chases him again. A smoke starts billowing from the robot's face, making a frightening whistling noise. As the robot prepares to attack, Danny makes his move and Walter picks up the card, so he can finally run, but suddenly objects around the house begin to be pulled in one direction. It just so happens that this time the board has thrown them very close to a star, so they are over the gravitational field of the celestial body. The gravity is so strong that books start to be ripped off the shelf and parts of the house start to detach and fly towards the star. Even with its extremely heavier than average body, the robot manages to jump and reach Walter's leg. Feeling that enormous force, the boy starts to fall, but stops accelerating as soon as he hits the wall. The robot, on the other hand, is not so lucky, because of its extreme weight. As he fell he ended up going through the structure and only stopped when he reached the basement, however he suffered enormous damage in the fall. After the house has begun to move away from the star and stops being influenced by gravity, Walter goes down to the basement to check what has happened to the robot and finds it self-repairing with a very bizarre shock-releasing arm. Afraid it might fix itself and get him, the boy then locks the door and desperately runs to the upper floor. Walter turns the key and pushes the button. When his spaceship stops moving, he picks up the card and realizes that he has again been very lucky, being awarded the prize once again to advance a few spaces. On Danny's turn, the boy refuses to play and goes to the kitchen to try to make mac and cheese, and to do so he turns on the stove. And you will see that this decision was not a smart one at all. Walter manages to convince him to play again, and after the youngest presses the button, the letter warns them that they are being visited by Zorgons, who until then are a great mystery, and since the letter says they were visitors, Walter believes they might be friends. A few seconds after reading the message, a spaceship arrives at them and starts firing at the house. The boys then run to the fireplace trying to hide, but the Zorgons can see them and fire in the chimney, almost burning the brothers, who have to run to another corner of the room. Walter turns the key and makes his move once again, drawing the reprogram card. Not knowing what exactly this letter would reprogram, the boy even tries to aim for the ship, but the only thing he succeeds in doing is almost getting hit by the space cannons. For a moment, the spaceship goes out of sight, and taking advantage of the lull, Danny plays along, and when Walter picks up the letter to read, he realizes that it said something about a lost astronaut. At that very moment, someone rings the doorbell, and when no one answers, a mysterious astronaut enters the house. The strange invader knows that the Zorgons are attracted to heat, and as a way of dealing with the aliens, he tells the boys to turn off everything that could emit heat, such as the lights, electronic devices, and the heater. At the same time, he begins to rummage through the kitchen looking for something flammable that can be used to lure the Zorgons away from the house. After the boys turn everything off, the astronaut throws a flammable liquid and a match on the couch, setting the upholstery on fire. With the help of the boys, he throws the burning object into space and thereby manages to get the aliens to follow the charred piece of furniture, and thus away from the house. With everything calmed down, the trio decides to continue playing, but when looking at the position of the spaceships on the board, Walter says that Danny cheated by moving his piece forward manually and pushes the boys' rocket back while they have a very heated discussion. When things calm down, Walter turns the key and presses the button, but when it's time for the number to be drawn, the display starts spinning wildly, and after a few seconds, a letter comes out saying that the boy has been caught cheating, and therefore will be ejected from the board. Walter is confused because he believes that Danny is the one who cheated, but he doesn't even have time to argue. The boy is thrown out of the house with all his might, and if the astronaut does not come to his rescue with his jetpack, it is game over. With everyone safely back, Danny makes his move and the card sends him back 2 squares. With that, the 5 turns are completed and Lisa is unfrozen. Upon waking up, the girl feels the house is extremely cold and turns on the heater. A very bad idea, as you can probably imagine. Meanwhile, on the floor below, Walter plays and manages to draw the number 9. When the game hands him the card, he realizes that this one is different from the others. He has been dealt a gold card. Reading the message, the boy discovers that in a few moments a shooting star will pass by and grant him a wish. But while they wait, Walter starts insulting Danny, saying that he was jealous and that he was to blame for everything, including his parents' separation. Furious, the younger boy throws the toy away and leaves the room. At that very moment, the shooting star passes by the house and Walter approaches the window to make his request. Believing that the boy's request would be something related to Danny, the astronaut tries to convince him not to ask for anything stupid, and after the shooting star passes them by, the man goes into a rage with Walter, asking what he had asked for, but the boy doesn't want to reveal the secret. The astronaut then goes out desperately screaming to find Danny. Upon entering the room and finding the little boy under the bed, the astronaut realizes that Walter actually asked for a simple autographed ball instead of asking for the game to be over, which is supremely dumb, let's face it. Well, all this worry has a reason, and the astronaut decides to tell his story. 15 years ago, he and his younger brother were Zathura players, and they also fought constantly. But with each round they advanced, their relationship deteriorated more and more, until the astronaut arrived at the same part of the game as Walter, and when the shooting star passed by, the request was that his younger brother had never been born. As soon as he made the wish, the man regretted it and tried to play one more time to maybe draw the same card and undo the wish, but since it was not his turn, the game did not allow him to play. Therefore, he was stuck wandering through space to this day. Thrilled by the story, the two brothers reconcile and decide to continue playing, but at that very moment they are hit by a Zorgon ship. The heater Lisa turned on called the reptilians back. The trio then goes to the site of the attack and finds that the reptilians have hit the room, right where the game and the hamster were. Knowing that the aliens have taken the debris to use as fuel, the astronaut believes there's a chance that they have also taken the game, and decides to lure them with fire and perhaps recover the board. Putting the plan into practice, the group starts to break wooden objects such as chairs, brooms, and others, and build a fire. Upstairs, Lisa is drying her hair when she begins to smell burning throughout the house and comes out of the bathroom looking for the source of the odor. The girl then runs up to the second floor, and when she reaches the kitchen, she sees the huge fire that her brothers have built. Trying to prevent the whole house from catching fire, she grabs the fire extinguisher and starts to put out the fire. As soon as Lisa ends the flames, the astronaut returns saying that the Zorgons will finally dock. As they look through the hole left in the room, the group sees the alien ship preparing the harpoons, which are fired around the entire house, bursting the walls with huge claws. When the reptilians finally dock, the astronaut asks the trio to stay hidden in one of the rooms while he goes downstairs to try to find the game. After a few minutes, the man returns saying that he could see the board near the heater in the basement, but that there were dozens of Zorgons in the way. At that moment, Danny remembers the elevator where he hid earlier, which is just past the heater. Since he is the only one who can fit in the elevator, even though he is afraid, the boy agrees to go to the basement and retrieve the board, but while the astronaut is using the pulley to take him to the floor below, a Zorgon begins to climb the stairs and the man must stop to hide. Danny then gets desperate and starts swinging, which causes the mechanism responsible for going up and down the elevator to break. The astronaut tries to hold rope to save the boy, but to make matters worse, the Zorgon who was climbing the stairs and had given up, heard all the noise and decided to go back to the second floor. Out of options, the group ties the rope to the elevator and hides in a room to avoid being caught. As soon as he arrives in the basement, Danny finds the place where the toy was supposed to be, but discovers that it was only the box that was there. Looking around, the boy sees the board lying in a pile inside the ship and decides to go there to get it. When he finally reaches the game, Danny ends up dropping it on a treadmill, drawing the attention of one of the Zorgons who narrowly misses it. Realizing that in a few seconds the board will be thrown into a furnace, Danny runs along the conveyor belt, but halfway through he must pass through an enclosure of mutant goats with 4 eyes that would strike fear into anyone. But even though he is frightened, the boy manages to get past the bizarre animals. At the end of the treadmill, the Zorgon responsible for throwing the objects into the furnace realizes that the alien goats have gotten loose and goes to them to try to retrieve them. Danny picks up the tray and runs back to the elevator, but it turns out that while passing through the demonic goats enclosure, the boy steps on a mountain of fluorescent green goo, leaving a path that leads straight to him. In the elevator, Danny starts swinging once more, trying to warn them that they should pull him. But the Zorgon on the second floor sees the rope moving and strikes a blow with his knife, breaking it with extreme ease. When the alien returns to the furnace, he finds the trail left by the boy and so begins the chase. Even with several Zorgons after him, Danny manages to get under the ladder and on his way out of the basement finds Walter, but the boys end up being cornered when some aliens cover the path their older brother used. And to make matters worse, the robot that is now in a new state reaches them. With nowhere to run, Walter is caught by the still crazy machine, and as a last attempt to survive, he takes the reprogramming card from his pocket and shows it to the robot, which instantly releases it and begins to blow up all the Zorgons it finds, destroying one of the ships and forcing the other to retreat. Just as they reach the second floor, the distracted siblings almost get caught by an alien that was coming down the stairs, but are saved by Lisa, who pushes a piano down the stairs, crushing the monstrous beast. Now it's Danny's turn. He makes his move, but nothing much happens. He is just forced to move back a square. When it's Walter's turn, the lucky boy gets a golden card again, but this time he decides to make a less selfish request. When the shooting star appears in space, the boy asks for the astronaut's brother to come back to life, but as soon as he gets his wish, an exact copy of Danny appears. It turns out that the astronaut is actually Walter from another reality and older for having wandered through space for so many years. Upon meeting his younger brother again, the man, who is quite emotional, tells him that he loves him and begins to say goodbye, something he has not been able to do for 15 years. The astronaut's brother looks at Danny and slowly walks over to him. As soon as the two touch, the version from the past begins to glow and disappears after a few seconds, becoming just one again. Feeling that his goal has finally been accomplished, the astronaut walks over to his younger version, and as he touches it, it begins to rejuvenate until it too becomes a cloud of dust just like his brother. At that very moment, dozens of Zorgon ships surround the house and begin to destroy it with their cannons. Apparently the aliens who managed to survive the robot went to the rest of the species to ask for reinforcements, and came back for revenge. With the house about to be destroyed and his brothers hoping that the game will soon be over, Danny, who needs to get a 10 to win, makes his move, but since he is unlucky enough, he only gets a 1. But when Walter picks up the letter, he reads the following message: "Want to swing on a star? Move 9 spaces ahead." With this, the boy's spaceship reaches the end of the board. Danny finally won the game. At that moment, the dark sphere opens up and begins to spin while being lifted by a large amount of sparks. Yet just as suddenly as it began, the sphere stops spinning. With the game finished, one last card leaves the board thanking them for playing. With such a simple ending, the brothers are confused and Walter gets up to see if anything has changed outside. But as he approaches the window, one of the Zorgon ships fires a harpoon that not only almost hits him, but rips out the entire wall, revealing a large black hole right next to them. That's Zathura. Trying to help her brother, Lisa ends up being sucked along with the alien ships. As the house is pulled into Zathura, the boys hold on to the board, but due to the immense acceleration caused by the black hole, Walter ends up being sucked into it. Danny then screams in despair thinking his brothers are dead, but when he opens his eyes, he is back in the living room, and when he calls for Walter, he realizes that he is safe and sound in the armchair watching TV. Just like before they played, even the hamster has come back to life. In order to confirm that they are indeed safe and sound, Walter goes outside the house and confirms that they have finally returned to Earth. And so ends the space challenges of Zathura. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.